Here's some botched up extra bits. Fries on the side.
Right, well, I'll give you a little bit of an update on WWE, considering that I've spent the last 2 weeks writing notes on it for no particular reason, because we don't talk about it. I've got one problem, which is current throughout WWE's entire programming, including the show that you watched this week, NXT. Not thinking about the important little things. I just want to take you to SmackDown, just for a quick minute, about last Friday's SmackDown. I'm not going to talk to you about the awful opening segment with Otis in which he gets fat shamed and mocked for having learning disabilities. We don't need to go there.
Classic WWE. Classic. Oh, no. Vintage. Vintage WWE right there.
Yeah. They went straight into it. I know that we were both feeling a bit frustrated with... We were talking about the Kane thing and the Otis having the same weight and how they're making, like, fat spots. They didn't care this week. They just went straight into pictures of childhood Otis, teenage Otis, and just making one after the other flubber jokes. But what I wanted to talk about at the end of the Money in the Bank, I know I don't really want to take you back that much because I know it hurts you. What was the focal point of that match? What caused Otis to get the championship?
Well, AJ dropped it.
Why did AJ drop it?
Oh, because Elias smashed Corbin with the guitar.
Right. Why Elias smashed Corbin
since.
with the guitar, I'm not really sure, considering Elias won.
Yeah.
But if you want to build that match up, and it's the closing point of your pay-per-view, where do you stick the match?
What do you mean? Well, like their next match?
Yeah.
On the next pay-per-view?
It was on SmackDown.
Right.
Elias won in 10 minutes.
Is this before or after Corbin invaded Raw to have his big moment with Drew?
So this was before. So what you've done here is...
Oh my god. What?
You reignite a feud that nobody wants, that the person reigniting it has already won. You put that on the end focal point of your pay-per-view. You have the rematch on the TV the next week. You have the winner who came after the loser for no apparent reason just to beat him again. Then you have the guy that you're promoting for your next flagship show to bring viewers over to Raw lose.
This is ridiculous. So you're telling me on Raw they announced this wild card and the first, whatever it's called now, and the first major match was going to be Drew versus Baron Corbin. And then on the SmackDown...
Which in itself is not like a great...
Yeah, that's the star. That's the star we're bringing over from the other show. He's going to bring in ratings, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
And then you make him lose, and then on Friday night you're like, oh, okay, I'll tune into Raw to see if he can win the championship now that fucking Elias beat him. What sensible booking.
Okay, I want to take you forward to a show you did watch, NXT. So
NXT was a great show.
But can you let me know what happened in the opening match?
So in the opening match, we got Matt Riddle and Timothy Thatcher. And they're this makeshift tag team. And I haven't seen them in ages. Basically, they're defending, and they kind of blow up in mid-match. I just love it how Matt Riddle, like in that entrance, he kicks his flip-flops at Thatcher. And that ignites the rage to begin with. Nice. Yeah, basically, Thatcher does the classic heel move of just leaving the match, leaving his partner to do a tag match completely by himself, and they lose the belts.
Okay.
And then backstage, Matt Riddle is on a Zoom call with William Regal, and he's like, I need a match with this guy. We got to settle our score. We've not been on the same page for forever. Make it happen. Then another segment, Thatcher attacks him backstage in what was I thought was a great spot. He grabs a TV monitor and smashes it over Matt Riddle's head. And I was like, where the fuck was that in Money in the Bank? That's the spot anyway, whatever.
My point here though is they eventually had a match in the main event, right?
Yeah, and then I was getting
which was good.
Apparently. Yeah, it was fantastic. I didn't pick up on it, but looking back I see it, but I think it was Alvarez said it, that they never hit the ropes once. There was no whips or anything like that. It was just a fist fight in the middle of the ring.
Ooh, nice.
These two went to war with each other in an MMA style fight, and it was really fun.
I think I want to see that. I think I will be checking that out. My point though is you got the opening match. Thatcher walks out, classic heel turn. What's that? That's the start of an angle. Where do we resolve it?
This isn't over, if that's what you're saying.
But
like
where do we have the first match?
On the later in the main event.
On the same show.
Yeah.
Why?
So do you not like stories that happen in one show?
No.
Oh, okay. I mean,
to me it just defeats the idea of a feud.
This is by no means over. I'm pretty sure.
No, but I mean, I'm not saying that Timothy Thatcher and Matt Riddle are main event WWE, right? But if you're starting an angle with Brody Lee and John Moxley, and halfway through the show, Lee attacks Moxley, do you then have Lee versus Moxley in the main event of the same show?
I guess not.
I mean, you could take a week or two. I'm not saying anything against the match or the angle because I've heard the match is really good and I actually want to check it out. But if you've actually got a feud going on, whether it's lower card, mid card, or upper card, and you want to play it for a couple of weeks, at least give it a week until a match, you know?
Yeah, I get that. But I do like stories that pan out in one show. And I think a lot of the time on Raw, there's a problem where there's so many storylines happening at once. By the time we're at the end, I've forgotten what happened at the beginning.
That's true. Okay.
And next week, I'm like, I don't know what these people are doing, and I don't care. But on the other hand, I see what you're saying. Like, if you want to big up this big storyline, don't give your blow-off match right at the beginning.
My last point through the course of the shows, I just wanted to do a little SmackDown, NXT, Raw, dropping the ball on the small things. The first match we get is Humberto Carrillo coming down because Seth Rollins has attacked his mentor, Rey Mysterio. And Humberto Carrillo now has a match with Murphy. They advertised last week on Raw and built up over a week on Twitter and social media, Aleister Black versus Murphy for this week's Raw, after Aleister Black beat up Murphy the week before. Murphy gives so much of just shit about the menace and power of Aleister Black that he takes a match with Humberto Carrillo before his match with Aleister Black on the same show. So doesn't that kind of make you feel that Aleister Black isn't really something to worry about?
Yeah, like he's an afterthought now. Did Aleister Black win?
He did after, I think, DQ. Yeah, DQ. This is another thing I wanted to talk about very quickly. Our boy Austin Theory, who's lost his voice.
I've heard on yesterday's Raw he's changed stables.
Yeah, and it very much felt like the Mexicans beating up the gringo. it was like there was really no reason or need for it. Garza had like a little tiny argument that they teased, and then Garza just looked at Andrade and they were like, nah, fuck it. This guy's not one of us.
Just messing.
And then apparently Austin Theory is still at ringside 20 minutes later. He's still just sitting there. And that's why Seth Rollins goes over to him. Seth Rollins doesn't find him in the back dejected or anything. No, he's actually just sitting usually where the announce table is.
So I got two things about this. One, I like that Austin Theory is being used. There's a storyline of him being picked up as a follower and he's gonna like evolve and Rollins is gonna save him. Mm-hmm. But doesn't this mean that Seth Rollins' stable is weaker and looks shitter than Selena's beefy men? Because they beat him up and left him out to dry, but he's good enough for Rollins. You see what I mean?
I get your point here. I think it's saved by the fact that Seth Rollins is a delusional cult leader. And just like the Dark Order, I don't think they're necessarily looking for prowess. They're looking for people that they can toss.
Yeah, I mean,
the ring to.
Yeah, his whole thing is that he's the savior of wrestling. So I get it fits, but I'm just saying right now, at the end of this one episode, Selena's beefy men are higher up the totem pole.
Sure. I do agree, but again, I think Selena's beefy men kind of need to be, considering they've lost everything for the last 2 months.
Yeah, true. They need to win somewhere.
Honestly, between Charlotte now being the new John Cena, the Street Profits having an axe throwing competition, and Apollo Crews once again looking like a dickhead babyface, I thought that this was actually a step forward. And I'm glad Austin Theory is actually doing something, because I know we expressed concern with this guy a couple of weeks ago, and I've kind of taken him under my wing now, just because
rooting for him.
I kind of am, just because I hated I don't particularly like the guy, but I hate everything they did with him. Considering they have refused to give him a character and refused to give him anything but scraps, I think this is the perfect fit. He doesn't need to have a character now. He's like Murphy's underling, he's like deep down in the hierarchy. He's getting the slippers,
So tell me about this Intercontinental tournament.
Oh, do you know what happens? Do you know what happens, mate, if you stay at home and look after yourself during a pandemic?
Yeah, you lose your spot, even though apparently you're not going to lose your spot.
You get it stripped from you.
This is bullshit, right? This is, like, they said to everyone, you're not going to lose your spot on the card if you stay home because either you're ill or you're scared, not scared, but for whatever reason. And then he's been stripped of the belt. Not even, I mean, I know WWE don't do this, but an interim champion. Like, that would have been a nicer way around it, I think.
This is typical proper dickhead behavior. There's no need to strip him of the belt. Nobody really cares whether the belt is defended right now or not. If they wanted to fill time by doing a tournament, as you say, I've never understood why they don't like the whole idea of an interim champion. It does the tournament time because it feels like they just wanted to push a tournament, right? To have something to do, something of interest while it's all ticking over.
They saw AEW do a tournament and they're like, oh, hey, they're beating us in the ratings. Maybe we need one.
I'm sure they actually do sit and watch AEW.
It's the same thing. It's a tournament for a belt, for a vacant belt. It's the same thing. But anyway.
The whole idea of an interim champion makes complete sense to me. Somebody can't defend, but they haven't yet gone over the period of defense. They could have had the same tournament with the same outcome, and then Sami Zayn can come back, and if they want him to lose it, if they want to beat him up over the fact that he's looking after himself, do it then. And there's no need to do it right now.
Exactly. And you know what sells pay-per-views for Dana White and his UFC is champion versus champion matches. They fucking love it. They love interim champions because then they can push this whole the undefeated champion versus the undisputed champion. It's a big thing, and WWE could just do the same thing. I mean, the poster would write itself, both of them holding a belt.
I don't know whether you remember this, but while Andrade was US champion, he failed, I think, his second wellness violation. I don't want to say that for sure. It might have been his first, but he had a 30 to 60 day suspension. The US championship stayed around his waist. So what WWE is telling Sami Zayn is that by protecting himself in a pandemic, he is more of a dickhead than somebody that takes drugs to beef themselves up.
They don't like Sami because when he didn't go over to Saudi for whatever show, because he's not allowed to, he would probably be shot.
I mean, it's not a good idea, is it? And I really don't think that you should try and force somebody in that very fragile political situation to go over to that show. I think surely that's completely 100% fine, right?
Yeah, and when he protested that he wasn't doing the show, he lost his spot on the card. He was off TV for like a month or whatever. There's another situation which I can't remember, and something similar happened. And I'm just saying that I can't wait until his contract runs out and he goes somewhere else, because I think he's a great wrestler, and I always thought he was a bit of a weird fit for WWE anyway. But I reckon he would be treated much better even in Impact. Never mind AEW or wherever.
He needs to go, man. He's one of the few for me that have survived the WWE stink. I don't want to go on too many tangents here, but they did the Kevin Owens show on Raw this week, and I was falling asleep in it. Kevin Owens has been completely ruined for me over the last couple of years. When he first came out, and I think he beat Cena for the US Championship on his first night, he was on fire. And he's just got, the same way we used to say a guy had the Impact stink. the
Yeah.
TNA stink.
The TNA.
For me, there's certain guys now that have got the WWE stink that I've got no interest in seeing on my screen. And Sami Zayn has managed to somehow survive that. And
because he's so charismatic, he's so lovable, and his character, either as a face or a heel, he's just great at it. So I think he gets himself over despite what WWE do to him.
yeah, he'll prosper anywhere else. But if you want to talk about WWE pettiness and the championship tournament, Daniel Bryan had a match with Drew Gulak, which was my favorite match of the week.
I heard this was a great match.
It wasn't quite as good as the Elimination Chamber match that they had. It was a singles match at Elimination Chamber. It wasn't quite as good as that, but it's the best TV match I've seen in forever. Like, obviously, I didn't see the Matt Riddle match, but it's also the freshest thing I've seen on SmackDown in ages. And you know what? Obviously, we will talk about in a minute. Drew Gulak contract has expired, and at the current moment, he's a free agent. This happened overnight after Gulak match on SmackDown, and I just want to point out, like, man, Gulak's a clever dude. You know, getting a fantastic marquee match with Daniel Bryan on live TV as a CV builder a day before your contract expires. Like, well done. But on Twitter the next day, I just wanted to point out, they replayed the video and they also put it on Facebook, Instagram, everywhere else, and said, Daniel Bryan training practice with his trainer, or something like that. Daniel Bryan spars in a match with his training partner. Because they refuse to name Gulak.
They black out his name now.
Yeah.
So I've heard that this is more a negotiation technique rather than him wanting out of the company. That he was still on his 205 contract and he's worth a lot more now.
I didn't realize he might still be on his 205 live contract.
Which, to be fair, I mean, not even a couple of months ago, WWE was throwing ridiculous money at people to make sure they didn't go anywhere else. Like, absolutely absurd money to just jobbers.
Yep.
And he's definitely worth the money now. He's got TV time. He's having some of the best matches. He's definitely worth... I don't know if he's worth what he wants. I don't know how much he wants, but he's worth more than probably what he's on.
He's a very valuable part of the SmackDown brand, in my opinion, because I said on this podcast 2-3 weeks ago, Drew Gulak was my favorite wrestler because he can fill time without making it uncomfortable. He can produce a good match that makes you think sometimes some of WWE's stuff's great. If he's on the 205 live contract, that's ridiculous, and I can completely see why he wanted more money. But I didn't think that had anything to do with it. I just assumed that to be as risky as he is, asking for more money during a crisis, I just assumed he had something lined up almost immediately in his back pocket.
Well, this is what I'm thinking. If his plan is to jump to AEW, I don't think that's a good idea. I think his current push in SmackDown would be better than what he'd get in AEW. He might get an initial great debut, but I think his name value isn't big enough. He'd kind of get lost in the shuffle in the mid-card. He wouldn't get a massive push.
I agree. I can see him like having a feud with Shawn Spears or whatever.
Yeah. I think it's better off staying on SmackDown.
Just speaking personally, like in the midst of coronavirus, you're sticking with your job.
Yeah, definitely.
You're making money from it and you're getting paid. There's not a lot of job opportunities right now, and it's very risky to just sort of leave it and go somewhere else.
On the other hand, WWE usually signs people to at least 5 years, and if he's 5 years on 205 money, that's a long time to be selling yourself off for. So
You've got to be a little bit pissed off if Dana Brooke's making more money on a longer contract than you.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he's just gambling on himself, and he's hoping that they sort this out.
Like, share, and subscribe to keep it botched up, brother.